So we'll talk about some of the facts that we know. The caveat I always give is true in this case. The media and community must understand that the information I'm going to give today is based on a preliminary investigation, and those facts, our understandings of the facts can change as we gather additional evidence and analyze that evidence. On May 28, 2022, at approximately 8:30 p.m., an officer-involved shooting occurred at the Hard Rock Casino parking lot in Rockford, Illinois. Rockford Police Department received a 911 call in which the caller reported that there was a man with a gun in the parking lot. Officers encountered Bradley James Tompkins, 51 years of age, near the entry doors of the casino. When confronted by officers, Tompkins put a gun to his head. Tompkins fired one shot in the air before lowering and pointing his weapon at the officers. It is believed that 3 officers shot Tompkins before they took him into custody. 2 of those officers were from the Rockford Police Department, Officers Dion Embry and Jordan Black, and the 3rd was from the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Georgie Arbisi. Tompkins was taken by ambulance to a local hospital, and we believe that he remains there in critical condition. The officers were also taken to a local hospital and were released. They were not physically injured. After the officer-involved shooting and at the request of Rockford Police Department Chief Carla Redd and Winnebago County Sheriff Gary Caruana, the Winnebago County Task Force was activated, arrived on scene, and took over the investigation. Officers from Rockford Police Department and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office will not participate in the investigation, per the policies and procedures of the Integrity Task Force. At this time, because I know you're going to ask, this office and the Integrity Task Force will not release any video evidence during the pendency of the investigation. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Master Sergeant Davidson, who's going to talk a little bit more about the investigation and where we'll be going from here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. On 5/28/2022, about 8:30 p.m., the incident occurred. The task force was activated shortly thereafter by Sheriff Caruana and Chief Carla Redd to respond to the Hard Rock Casino for an officer-involved shooting. This shooting presented a unique situation for the Integrity Task Force because it involved both the Rockford Police Department and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department, obviously the 2 largest entities within the Integrity Task Force, which we usually when an incident occurs, it's usually Rockford involved in the shooting or the county, and we use detectives from the other agencies to help. So the task force has a protocol in place. We have what we call a C team, and that's for situations such as this where where Rockford City and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department are both involved in an officer-involved shooting. So we activated the C team, which included detectives from obviously the ISP, Illinois State Police, the Loves Park Police Department, Rockton Police Department, Boone County Sheriff's Department, and the Belvedere City Police Department, as well as the South Beloit Police Department, all responded to the scene. In all, I think we ended up with around 12 detectives to handle the scene, which was pretty immense for the size of the casino. The officers on scene began their usual investigation, interviewing witnesses, collecting evidence, securing all video, including all the 911 calls, gathering weapons for ballistic lab testing for the later date. And as we stand here today, the investigation is still ongoing, and the suspect is still in critical condition at St. Anthony's Hospital.
So I'll just kind of conclude with what the role of the state's attorney is in these situations. So we are there to provide aid and support in the investigation. However, the primary investigation rests with the Integrity Task Force. We can support that effort, including legal advice, help with search warrants, and the like. But once the investigation is complete, that's really when we do most of what our role is as state's attorney. And the task force will present its report to our office. And then we do the review as to whether or not criminal charges are appropriate. And again, our review does not look into issues such as compliance with police department policies or procedures. Our general standard in making a charging decision is that the prosecutor will consider the whether the evidence is likely to be admissible at trial or barred for some reason, and after considering all admissible evidence, the prosecutor then determines whether the evidence can establish all elements of a criminal offense beyond a reasonable doubt. And that decision to charge is in the interest of justice. The specific standard with respect to officer-involved shootings is that an officer may use deadly force when, based on the totality of the circumstances, the officer reasonably believes the deadly force is necessary to defend against an imminent threat of death or serious injury to the officer or others. So in terms of timing, some of the things in the first year and a half or so of my job that I've gotten kind of in trouble for is sometimes overestimating how long it's going to take. You may recall in the incidences of last April, I really apologized and said I took too long, and so we're not going to do that this time. You know, my goal is always when the Integrity Task Force gives me their report that I'll turn that around in no more than 30 days, and so that will be the goal here as well. In terms of how long the investigation will take, Master Sergeant Davidson can opine as to that, although it sometimes is difficult to predict. But our office wants to do better with respect to getting the answer out to the public on whether charges will be brought or not. And like I said, that our review would be within 30 days of receiving the report from the Integrity Task Force. So if in the act that I mentioned earlier requires by law that if the state's attorney does not charge an officer involved, that their report would be released in the investigation and then in the opinion of the state's attorney's office. Now, remember, there's not a death here, so that act doesn't apply. However, in the statement you can find online, and we would release the information, including the memorandum from our office, if there were no charges. If there were charges, then much of the investigation would not be reported to the public, because it would be just like any other criminal defendant, and thus beyond a relatively short probable cause statement, nothing would be released to the public. So those are kind of the two things that could occur. And the transparency involved therein. I'll say it again because I said it at the beginning, that the investigation is ongoing and that our understanding of the facts and circumstances could change.